Hey everybody, this is Kurt Molly here. I got a special guest, Brian Kurtz. Now I don't know how I'm going to articulate this properly on how excited I am. This is kind of be like a giddy schoolgirl, maybe like a kid right before Christmas. So when I had my advertising agency in downtown Austin, at the time we had about 15 or 16 employees. This is 2015. We're asking lots of different questions. How do we get better? How do we get better? How do we get better? We're working with like lead pages and click funnels and Evan Pagan and Mike Dillard and San Antonio Spurs. We're like, how do we get better? And someone's like, this was a rare book. You have to find it. It's called Breakthrough Advertising. You have to find it. And we're like, what? We start doing some research on it. But we find the book one way or another. It's kind of expensive at the time. We grab it. The entire sales staff is freaked out. They love it. We buy a book for every single one of them. Hands down, it revolutionizes the way that we think about business, a lot of the way that the ad agency is buying. Well, that license is actually owned. This book right here is what I'm talking about. That license is actually owned by this individual over here. So I'm actually on Brian's email list, have been for a while. A mutual friend I've talked about in a bunch of these interviews, Brian Gonzalez. Well, Brian said that, hey, David Gonzalez said, Brian's going to come speak at the Internet Marketing Party. We have a mastermind beforehand. Would you like to come and listen and add some value and speak? Oh my goodness, yes. What are we going to talk about? And he goes, what we're going to talk about is Overdeliver, which essentially is giving a ton of value. What we're doing right here, we'll be talking about Brian's book. But the thing is Brian has been online, offline, a very long time. Now, when I like to say OG, one of the original people that a lot of people really look up to, we have some of the world's top copywriters who have been interviewed. John Morrow, John Benson is here. We just talked to Chris and Dodd yesterday. And honestly, this is an honor to have you on here. I mean, literally, I don't know how to say this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. But, you built this up, and I just want you to know, I'm not Gene Schwartz. So anything that I'll say to you today is, will pale in comparison to what Gene shared in Breakthrough Advertising. But Gene was a mentor of mine. I used him for copy. He was just a giant of a man, but also he was like 6'4". And he was a big influence in my life. And when I was at Boardroom, even before I went out on my own completely, I had gotten the rights to his book. And so we sold limited copies, and I mostly gave them away to people in the industry. And we'd order 250 at a time, and I'd give them away. And then when I left Boardroom, I left with the rights to Breakthrough Advertising. I have a deal with Gene's wife, Barbara, and now I sell it. It's expensive, but a lot cheaper than what you'll find it on Amazon. If you didn't buy it from me, you probably paid a lot more than $125 for it. And I'm selling thousands of copies all over the world. And it's unbelievable. I've sold it to over 50 countries already. And I don't know, and that's with no AdWords, that's with no Facebook advertising. I guess I'm leaving money on the table by not doing that. But I think that there's so much more opportunity. And my opportunity is not necessarily monetary, although it's nice that I can make money for Barbara and Gene's estate and also for myself. But what's really amazing is the appetite for Gene's work today from a new generation of direct marketers. And that's what I love. And the most amazing thing about the book, it was written in 1966. I've not changed one word, and it's 100% relevant today, because it's not just about copywriting and marketing. It's about human behavior. It's about how people buy. It's about the relationship to the list and the message, which is something that we all do every day. And an email, anybody who sends an email to their list, that one email to the whole list all the time, is crazy. You've got to segment the list, and you've got to send messaging to the different segments. And Gene's, the states of awareness, which Gene talks about, of your audience, is probably the single most important thing you need to know if you're going to market to them. And he didn't even do email. He was talking about direct mail and radio and TV. And now with advertising opportunities being infinite, it's a whole different game. And his book is even more relevant today. And again, I haven't changed one word from the 1966 edition, and that edition you held up. I just added an afterword by me, and I also added some swipes in the back, in the appendix, some ads that he did. And if anybody wants it, it's at breakthroughadvertisingbook.com.
I'll
And
put a URL right on the screen too, but
yeah,
Breakthrough
but it's
Advertising.
and it's I have the cheapest version, I have the exclusive version, and don't pay $300 or $800 on Amazon or eBay for it. You should buy it from me, not because I'm going to make some money on it, but because it's the cheapest and it's the best.
So I want to talk about Boardroom in a second, because we'll bring it up just a couple of times. But here's something, just to be very open with you, that I really respected about you when we were all in our mastermind. Now we're in our mastermind, we're talking about, hey, how do we sell more books? And we're like, well, there's a free plus shipping, and then there's one way that you can give it away with this other gimmick. And you're like, I just want to add value. If people want the book, they want the book. I just want to add value. I've made enough money already. If they buy the book, that's great. I want to put the book in more people's hands, but I don't need to create a fancy funnel to do all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. And I mean, that's really what this book is all about anyway, which is Overdeliver. It's what we're talking about here. So what I love is the mindset of, you're really serving a lot. You're not really concerned about affiliate links and making a bunch of other money. Well, you've had some really great home runs. Can we talk about Boardroom for just a minute? For those of you who don't know what Boardroom is, they hear it directly from you. What was Boardroom? What is it? And what happened?
Yeah, it was a fairly simple business. I mean, it started in 1972 by Martin Edelstein, and I got there in 1981. I was 14 at the time. Not really. So I got there in 81. We had a newsletter called Boardroom Reports. We had some business books that were kind of greatest hits of Boardroom. And then we got some authors to do books on taxes and estate planning and all sorts of business topics. And Marty had just launched another newsletter called Bottom Line Personal, which was sort of the personal side of the small business owner. So Boardroom Reports was geared to the small business, how to run your company. He launched that business totally as a heart-based. I mean, he wanted to make money at it, but it was his passion to help business owners learn a lot more than they're going to learn from Business Week, Fortune, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal, which told you what was happening at the big companies, but it didn't tell you how to do it. So he wanted a newsletter, which was Boardroom Reports, no advertising, that told you how to hire, how to fire, how to invest, how to borrow money, all of that kind of stuff. And he interviewed people, and that was our launch newsletter. And then when I got there, I guess Bottom Line Personal had been around for about a year, and Bottom Line Personal was the personal side of the executive, and that just took off. And so I guess, it's sort of like, it's the Wayne Gretzky quote, you go where the puck's going, you don't go where it is. Yeah. And while Boardroom Reports was his passion project, he realized that, and I realized too, that Bottom Line Personal was going to be going to basically carry the freight for the company. And we kept Boardroom Reports around. We actually changed Boardroom Reports' name to Bottom Line Business at one point, because Bottom Line became the name of the name of that, the newsletter that made the company what it is. In fact, years after I left, they actually changed the name of the company from Boardroom to Bottom Line Inc. Although we kept Boardroom for a long time because it was such an iconic publisher of newsletters, books, direct mail, and through direct mail. And we were, one of a few companies that, didn't take advertising. We made money on our circulation, even if it's not in year one. We made it by year two. I talk about that in Overdeliver, about how you, and it's what marketers do today. It's, how much can you lose in year one to make it back by year two, or maybe in a year and a half, or maybe 3 years. And we went the whole gamut of all of that, in terms of basically creating a company. And we didn't have funnels per se, but we did, because we had books and we had other newsletters. We developed a health newsletter, Bottom Line Health, which became a big newsletter in itself, not quite as big as Bottom Line Personal, but then we started publishing health books, and we became a huge health publisher. Yeah. And then where we expanded.
Just to be clear, and I don't mean to interrupt, when we're talking newsletters, we are talking about something that comes in the mail once a week, once a month. It is an actual physical publication.
Bottom Line Personal is twice a month, and Bottom Line Health is once a month. But go ahead.
Absolutely, because a lot of times we talk about newsletters, people think like, oh yeah, there's this published online digital. No, remember this is back in the 80s. This is something physically mailed a couple of times a week or a couple of times a month. This led to also infomercials and stuff like that. Isn't that correct?
Right. So that, everything, I never met a medium I didn't like. Some worked, some didn't. I have this one quote in my bio somewhere that says, I never met a medium I didn't like, but advertising on the back of yogurt lids and on ATM receipts was a good idea at the time. Because, yogurt lids, obviously, you have to lick it off and then it's hard to write on. And ATM receipts are throwaways. So, but I'll test anything. And TV was one market that I always wanted to get into in a big way. And so that was one of my, actually, if you go to my site at briankurtz.net, the opt-in to get on my list, and my list is great to be on. It's all content, basically. And if you get on my list, it's an interview I did with Perry Marshall. It says the three biggest secrets, my three best marketing secrets. And one of them is how we got into the infomercial business. But basically, I always wanted to be in TV ever since I started at Boardroom, because we never were able to get, newsletters are tougher. We didn't have advertising. So a magazine could be on TV and you get advertisers and that pays the freight. I didn't have that. I had to make money on the newsletter itself or on the book itself. And there were people doing books on TV, in the 80s, but it was not that often that you got a big success. And then when infomercials came about in 1998 or so, I guess the real big one was Tony Robbins. And I wanted to get into the infomercial business. And I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically I came up with an idea, but I just, I wanted a system, like the bottom line system, and I never got a hold of it in terms of being able to do it. It was all non-congruent parts. And I actually met with Bill Guthey and Greg Renker at the time, and we just couldn't get to a deal. And then fast forward to 2005, 2004, I always say how insomnia made me $200 to $300 million. And so I couldn't sleep one night, and I was watching infomercials on TV at 2 a.m. And there's, Kevin Trudeau selling one of his books, how to, well, it wasn't called this, but it was, how to eat a hot fudge sundae and lose weight, and which he got in trouble for. But I was watching and I'm thinking, wow, he's selling a single book at $29. And how does he make money on that, paying for 28.5 minutes? And so obviously after the commercial, I called the phone number and I realized how he did it. I always say he kept me on the phone for 3 weeks. The operator kept me on the phone for 3 weeks, Absolutely. Selling me everything under the sun. But it was all on the back end, obviously. So I had my model then. And so what I did, I'll say I decriminalized his offer. Not that he did anything illegal, but he had some other stuff that I think he might still be in jail. But you can learn a lot from that. You don't have to, as long as you decriminalize the offers or make them fit for what you want to do, that's the lesson. And so, he might have been making $110 an order on a $29 book. I figured out a way to make about $70 an order on a $39 book. And that was good. It was a really good system. So I just sold more books, more of our stuff. I didn't get into Walmart cards and travel clubs and all that other stuff that he got into on the call. And so that was a great way. And then the book that we sold was a health book. We over-delivered on that offer. We had Hugh Downs as the host, with Arthur Johnson, who was a wonderful copywriter, was the guest, and they interacted. We had all our doctors in vignettes about what their secret was that was in the book that we wanted them to know about, things that they did for Alzheimer's, heart disease, blood pressure, all that stuff. And it had just incredible social proof, and it was, a big success. We did 3 different versions, and that it took the company from $70 million to $150 million in 1 year. So, but, that's the short version. If you go to my site and listen to the interview, that's the opt-in, you can get the whole story. But I just never stopped thinking that we could get into the infomercial business. And once we were in it, we brought it back to direct mail, because the book that we were selling had been phasing out in direct mail, and we sold with a direct mail magalog, which is a type of format in direct mail. And we had on it was basically Hugh Downs and Arthur Johnson on the cover of the magalog, and that became our control in direct mail. And then we went on display advertising on the internet, and it was Hugh Downs reports, and we went to that. So it became a multimedia thing, but it was my insomnia that did it.
So I want to move back to the point of the story. Just a little clarification and correction, because I want to make sure everyone really takes this in, because you've done this for a long time. So as you recall history, you go through it really quick. And I know some of these points in history, and I'm like,
I might have missed something. Yeah. So tell me what I missed.
So just to be clear, Kevin Harrington is someone who really kind of helped pave the way for infomercials. Who we were talking about, though, wasn't Kevin Harrington. I bet you saw Kevin Harrington. We're talking about Kevin Trudeau. Kevin Trudeau is the person who, when you talk about decriminalizing, Kevin Trudeau is a person, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually know some of the behind the scenes. I shared this with you at the mastermind. Kevin Trudeau, many people may remember, used to actually have a book on an infomercial that would say, oh, page number 75, if you open up page number 75, it talks about how you're going to eat apples and cure cancer. If you go to page 196, it's going to teach you how to treat thyroid, blah, 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 with this and that. Actually, there were 4 books that were made with 4 different covers, and all the pages were actually blank. So when the infomercial was actually filmed, they flew in Kevin Trudeau, who was already in trouble for making other claims. He did this book deal where basically he just flipped through the book because all the money's made on the backside. Right. The guy, if I remember the story right, the guy who paid for the infomercial was the guy who owned the call center. He paid Kevin $1 million, flew in the United States. Kevin filmed that in 2 days, made up a bunch of this stuff before the books were published, flew out, they published the books, sold the books. The guy made more money now, and I believe the individual is completely retired, made a bunch of money, and lives in Israel. That is that part of the story. So
yes, that's an interesting behind the scenes there. But one of the things that I thought you were going to say is that the whole idea of calling out page numbers with what we call fascinations or bullets or whatever, I'm not saying we invented that at Boardroom, but we perfected it. And our copywriters at the time, Gene Schwartz in particular, but also Mel Martin, who is not as well known, but an amazing writer, he learned his craft from Ralph Ginsberg, and now I'm probably mentioning names that no one's ever heard of. But these were the pioneers of that format of and we used to do, whenever you eat on an airplane, page 46, how to outwit a mugger in a self-service elevator, page 97. So all of that stuff became, and right now, today, Paris Lampropoulos, one of the best copywriters in the world, absolutely, he has copy cubs, and he makes them perfect the art of writing bullets and fascinations. And a lot of copywriters, I'm sure maybe Chris Haddad talked about it too, or John Benson will talk about it. But that's a technique that I'm not going to say, I can't say no one invented anything, but it's always someone always takes credit for it, and then they're probably not getting credit for it. The person who really invented it. But we perfected it, and a lot of people emulated what we did. And it was an amazing way to sell books in particular.
Something you'll appreciate. I just went to an event where there's about 110 people, some of the world's top online marketers that were using webinars. And one of the top things that they're using now on the replay page is actually a bullet point list of where people can actually just fast forward to go to that actually point to skip to. Right. And they've seen conversions go up when they let people choose and what they actually want to watch. So
yeah, I tell you, in the book stuff, it was interesting because sometimes these copywriters were so creative that the fascination was way better than the answer. So, so we didn't want, in that case, we'd rather them read the package. I mean, the answer was correct, but like whatever to eat on an airplane, the answer is nothing, because of your blood sugar, and you shouldn't eat anything when you're on an airplane technically. So the answer is like sometimes really disappointing, but the fascinations are so good that you can't wait to get the book or the premium or whatever. And it's a technique that's used today often in online marketing, and as you said, in webinars, and I like that technique that they use in the webinars too.
So I have a couple of questions for you because one of the things that I just get when I say I'm like an excited kid in a candy store is because you've seen a lot of history. So when there's moments like now, I want to talk to as many people like yourself who have really been through all of these ups and downs and be like, hey, why have you weathered the, or what have you done to weather the storm? So you've been doing this a long time. You've gone through, well, I mean, the 80s, the 90s is already interesting. You've gone through the dot-com bust. You've gone through the real estate bust.
I went through the 87, or I think it was 87 or 88. I mean, I'm going back to that.
I was going to say the loan crisis. There's a savings of loan that goes in back there.
9/11.
So obviously,
actually, I have a section in my book which is about distractions, and I talk about the Gulf War. I talk about Princess Diana's car accident. That was a week. It was a Labor Day weekend. I had over $1 million worth of ads running that weekend, which I couldn't pull back. Think about that and the response rate. So I really have a whole thing about distractions. Hurricanes, Hurricane Hugo, for example. I had mail sitting at the letter shop, and at the last minute, I pulled zip codes out because I don't want to mail to somebody whose mailbox is floating down the street when they're not going to want the book of inside information at that particular time.
Yeah.
And it's actually I talk about it as a customer service thing. Why promote to somebody who is going through a horrible period? It's almost like it's not just to save your money on your mail, but it's to actually as a customer service thing, and then go back out and give money to the people who use your list, like Save the Children, Feed the Children, Habitat for Humanity, and you give them names. So that's a big section in my book. But as far as this, but I have been through a lot of crises, yes.
So that's kind of where it comes down to is right now, the time we're filming this, downtown Austin's boarded up for we don't know how long, and people kind of in this quarantine, and the economy is going to be really interesting. But like, there comes to be this point where I bring this up in a lot of interviews. People do one of two things right now, and it is they're in complete fear, don't know what to do. There's a lot of Netflix. We talked about this in the pre-interview. Netflix kind of scared, or there's a lot of entrepreneurs right now that are like, oh my goodness, there's an opportunity. And it seems to be the ones who have been in marketing longer start to see that opportunity. And I don't want to say this is, I want to say this is ethical opportunity. This is a time to pivot the business. But can you please talk about that? You've seen so many of these crises. What are you seeing right now? What do you do when you see yourself through these types of crises?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot. So I don't know if we can do them all, but right. I have a blog post going out. It's called Dispatches from the Front Lines. And what I've done is I've got a high-end mastermind group who are really all smarter than me. So I've gotten them one-on-one and talked about what they're doing to take advantage of the crises, but with heart and with empathy and everything that you just said. So everyone agrees that there's no one way to deal with COVID-19, the coronavirus, the pandemic, but there are many ways not to deal with it. In many cases, you don't even have to mention it, but you can still refer to it since it's baked into the cake already. Example, one member of my Titans Mastermind sells a supplement, and it's got 3 ingredients, one of which has shown excellent results for improving lung function. Now, to try to cash in on the coronavirus to say, we've got the cure for lung function would be terrible to do. But all they did was add a PS to the email that led to the sales letter, which talks about the supplement being good for lung function. And the PS just says, this ingredient is also good for lung function. And anybody who's following what's going on knows that lung function is really important. And that's a promotion that can be mailed after the coronavirus. So that's an interesting way. There's other ways, like not mentioning it all, because if you had an offer that was successful before the pandemic, like for instance, how to get a doctor when you can't find a doctor, that's a real offer that's been around for a while. That needs no further explanation to introduce it and sell it to your audience. Don't just say, oh, and this, don't frighten people that you're not going to be able to find a doctor and you have the solution, but you have a really valuable solution that's clearly going to be something that they can use. So you can do a lot of stuff without mentioning it. That'll be really good. I had a call with Frank Kern, and Frank Kern had an idea that says, okay, restaurants. Some restaurants can do this if they have a little cash, but it's not a lot of cash that they need. but he said I would dial up every college student and get them as sort of, they'll be the Pony Express for the uptick in deliveries of food, because you can just deliver now. You can still cook, you can still deliver, you just can't have people in your restaurant. I took it a step further and said that same Pony Express could go door to door. Don't knock on the door, don't ring the bell, don't make them come to the door, and give them, not just throw the menu in the door or throw the menu in the mailbox, but come up with a particular format that says, basically something like, I want to cook you dinner tonight, and give them like the specialties of your restaurant with a phone number. But then you, as the restaurant owner, are able to get those phone numbers. It's only in your area, so you can get those phone numbers from a list compiler. And then once you know that those specific, they're not just menus, that's a direct response piece. And then you go outbound and call them and say, I'd love to cook you dinner. I can cook those specialties that are on that special menu, or if you want something else, I can make it for you. And then you can basically take orders. And all I'm saying is everybody should be proactive, like they should be all the time. But if you haven't been proactive, if you're a restaurant, for example, that just distributed menus on windshields of cars, now you can be much more targeted, and no one's opening the door, and everybody's being socially distanced until you deliver the food. And even when you deliver the food, you can still be socially distanced. So that's like a specific idea that might be good for a lot of service businesses. I want to
talk about that for just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. So I was with Mark Ford recently, and Mark Ford had said, it's not all about copy, it's the articulation of an idea. And it just hit me. I'm like, oh my goodness. And what you're talking about literally is people take these signs and they hang it on doors, and it's like, hey, buy pizza, or hey, look at our menu. And all you did is took the exact same thing as if you sat in the restaurant. Hey, I want to cook you dinner. I want to cook you dinner from the special menu. I'll make you dinner. It's just repositioning the idea just a little bit, which is great. That's one of the main questions that I have for you as well, Brian. So I hear this kind of because of fear and a couple of different things. So right now, some people are pulling back on their advertising and not advertising at all because of fear of the market. And some people are not selling, not testing. They're not selling because of fear of the market. You've seen the ups and downs. What's your advice right now for people who want to pull back or not sell at all?
I think, for all the people that are pulling back, I think you've got to go full steam ahead. And when I say full steam ahead, I don't mean spend more money necessarily. I don't mean do things that are crazy. I mean invest in your community, invest in your, I always say my online family, which is really your list. Yeah. Invest in your list. Think about over-delivering in all sorts of ways. I had a couple, the idea is to go hard, but not necessarily spend more money. And so one of the things with the thing about the restaurants, all it is being able to differentiate yourself in a place where, and you're being proactive instead of waiting and wondering and hoping for business. And so if you take a proactive approach, that's going to make all the difference. So an example would be, and then as far as pricing and discounts and bonuses, this is a perfect time. It could be a perfect time anytime, but if you haven't done this, it's a perfect time to think about what you can give away for free, either now or later, how you can discount your best products, which includes installment or deferred pricing, just over-delivering with bonuses, which can, additional attention. Like if I have mastermind groups, I normally only do, with the virtual mastermind, which doesn't have live events, that program's moving ahead. But instead of doing one live call a month, I'll probably do 3 or 4 a month, and I'll bring in guests to come on and share their thinking. If you have an audience of buyers that have never bought a second product from you yet, or you have an upgrade of the product, offer them the second product or upgrade with deferred payments, or maybe half now, half in 3 months, and talk to them like they're your family because they already bought from you. So you talk to them and say, I hope you're enjoying product A. I want to give you an upgrade on product A or product B. And I know that you might be strapped for cash right now. So here it is. I'll give it to you for half price. I'll give it to you free for 3 months, and then I'll bill you in 3 months. Things like that are going to go. I mean, people have done 3-month memberships for free before and then gotten paid. Now you're doing it as given what's going on. It's a good offer regardless. I mean, I know somebody who gave away 10,000 free memberships to his membership site, and even if he doesn't, I mean, he's going to make money on them eventually, but even if he doesn't, assuming you have no hard goods, it's kind of like a loss leader in this case. But if you just over deliver that to them and you deliver all value, the odds are that you're going to make money from those people, because they're going to utilize you, and you're going to enhance them. They're going to appreciate you, and it'll come back in some way at some point. And in addition to products and services, I think that, you can, if you're like a chiropractor or I haven't figured out the dentist yet, but I have the chiropractor figured out. Like if you're a chiropractor or some kind of doctor that has to show up, you have to be in the office to serve them, why not find products or services that you can drop ship or partner with somebody? Example, supplements. You mentioned that before. But if you don't do supplements, go to a supplement guy who's got pain. I'll use the chiropractor as an example. So you go to a pain supplement that you believe in, that can tide them over for certain pain things until the smoke clears and they can come see you. In addition, why not give them a bonus of a free visit, a back crack or whatever? Give them a free visit when the smoke clears, but I'm gonna sell you these supplements and get them drop shipped and take a piece of that. A piece of something is better than getting nothing. And then another thing, you can find lasers. Like people have these pain lasers or massage things that, from $49.95 to $3,500. And if you find one that you can endorse and you like, and this is all about integrity, this is something that can tide them over, make a deal with them. Chances are you've got a better funnel with your patients, and these are really good marketers who are chiropractors. So you've got the funnel, you've got the whole thing. The guy who's got the laser might not even know how to market it. He's just doing it in retail or something. So you basically white label it to your practice, you sell them, and again, you sell that at maybe at a discount, maybe at cost if you want, whatever you want to do. Pricing's negotiable, and then you give them something free on the back end. You give them a free visit. Or what about gym owners? I just told my trainer can't come to my house. I can't go to the gym, and I just want it to be generous. So I have a bunch of visits on my current plan. I just said, bill me another 40 visits, and I want you to have some cash. But for other people, why not offer them a discount on paying in for the future? Why not give them some free visits or classes if they pay now? So give them something. I mean, these are all offers that we use all the time anyway. But now you have a reason to do it, and you make it really about people being strapped for cash or whatever.
Let's talk about that for just a second. So my girlfriend's in the gym business. She's a personal trainer, so everything's shut down right now. And we were talking about this on another interview. The local news has interviewed a local gym being like, oh, now you're giving virtual classes. They're giving virtual classes for free to tide people over. And I'm like, I don't know if you're necessarily helping by just setting up a free camera. That can kind of help, but there are other products and services that you could offer your group at this time that are professionals that have designed at-home gyms or at-home workouts or at-homes. Now, essentially what that comes down to is partners, affiliate products. And sometimes I see business owners being like, this is my baby. I'm not going to tell anybody about any other offer. And they really devalue the customer. Can you talk about that for a second? Like, are you really doing a disservice by not offering other products and services?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna practice what I preach necessarily, only because my list is not that big, and I don't do affiliates, except if I do an affiliate, I don't take any money, or I give the money to charity. That's just that's the line that I draw. I'm not against affiliates, of course, and if you're in a survival situation, like using your girlfriend as an example. So if she's an owner of so my wife does Pure Bar, and they're closed as well. She's getting online free classes. They're not free. She's a monthly payer, and she's not getting a refund for that. So she's basically paying for the online to tide her over. But what I would do if I was Pure Bar, I would basically say, are you equipped at home to do everything? Do you need some bands? Do you need some mats? Do you need that kind of stuff? And discount them at this time. And the affiliates could be all kinds of stuff. If I'll go as far as to say if your internet this is crazy, but if your internet isn't good enough to handle the live stream, why don't you upgrade your modem and you make a deal with somebody? I mean, there's all kind. Your imagination should run wild. Absolutely. With the ability to help your customers. And in the case of like a gym, I think the live stream is good, and anything's good. Anything you can give away for free that doesn't really cost you anything, doesn't cost the customer anything additional, is a no-brainer. That's just over-delivery in a time when people need it. But then you have to think about what else can you do. I mean, I said in my blog this week, take a deep dive with your best customers, like even one-on-one if you can, and say, what do you need right now that's even remotely related to what I deliver for you? I can't deliver for you, and you might, because it might be stuff you had never thought of before. So use your customers as the way to find them out. And then
that was the email you got.
So don't think about how you're going to do it or who you're going to do it with. Just think of the what. So if you go into it, what do you need? And then it's funny, the who and the how sometimes come to you better or easier if you know what the whats are, and you can get that from your audience.
That's exactly what we were talking right before the pre-interview. You're like, hey, I got an email from you asking 2 questions because someone else in a previous interview said, listen to your customers right now. And I'm like, well, we're in groups. And they're like, no, send an email and just ask them, what are you working on right now? What are you most worried about?
Right.
Oh, okay, like that makes sense. And all of a sudden I'm on an interview and all these emails start coming in, and I'm learning more and more what people are focused on versus what I assumed. So I have 2 other questions, and I know I'm a little over on time, so thank you for this. Number one, there's a lot of new people that are watching that are kind of, John Moreau said this best. People are now at home for the first time that are getting experience to actually work from home and maybe considering doing some different things. So as people are researching a beginner, if you were to start all over again and it was this time right now, what would you advise a beginner who wants to learn some of this online or marketing stuff? Where would they go? Obviously, we will put a link up on this book. This is number 1. If you're an advanced marketer, you must own this book as well too. We'll have a link up there. But what advice do you have for people who are just getting started?
Well, I think you have more time. So I think if you have no business at all, and I'm not the best guy to do startup because, I did have a startup 5 years ago, but I came into a company boardroom and then grew it. And so I was more of an intrapreneur than an entrepreneur. But I think you should participate. So you asked, I looked at your questions. What am I working on with my time? So I'm looking at my list now. And so I said, reaching out to my Titans Mastermind members for advice, ideas, and brainstorming and ways to mitigate the crisis. So if you don't have a group or a community, start getting one. Develop, if you can find 4 people in your field, who know your market, and say, let's get on a Zoom call and each do a hot seat for a half hour and start brainstorming what we can do with all this time. You can also make it a reading group. You could take a group of 4 or 5 people who are like-minded like you. I did this once and it was fantastic. And you assign, and now we used to assign a book a month. You can assign a book every 2 weeks now. And you assign a book and everybody gets a choice of a book and that no one's read. And in fact, we did breakthrough advertising in that group. We did Scaling Up by Vern Harnish in that group. We did Give and Take by Adam Grant in that group. And you just assign a book and you get on the phone. It becomes your mini mastermind. and that can always, expand out. I think you need to write. You need to write, even if you don't write. I mean, I've got the advantage right now of having a weekly blog for 5 years, but I spent all day yesterday, and it's long. I hope people will even read it. But tomorrow's blog is all of these ideas of what I'm learning and what I'm finding out. And you should just write everything down. If you don't have a blog, keep a journal, because now's the time. If you're really trying to come up with an idea to maybe move out into the entrepreneurial world, you've got to write. You've got to do journals. You've got to. In fact, I just got this great journal from Yannick Silver called the Cosmic Journal, which is fantastic. But just if it's a blank piece of paper, that's fine too. If it's one with prompts, like the 5-minute journal, that's great too. Whatever you need to do. I also think that you should think about marketing. If you are only working at home, but you work on different things, what we've already talked about, think about what can I do to market in this environment. And once the environment's over, you're going to have new ideas to market when it's not a crisis. I think you want to think about what your superpowers are, what you are known for, what you think you could be known for, and even take on some one-on-one consulting assignments. It's something I swore I'd never do, but I'm even going to do it now, not for the money, but to help selected folks who are challenged, or if they have specific opportunities that fit into my sweet spot. And everybody's got a sweet spot. I mean, Dick Benson, who was the most intelligent person I ever met on direct mail, used to say to me, I used to say, how you get so smart? And he used to look at me and he goes, I know everything about this much. And this is on video, right? So people can see my fingers. It's my thumb and my index finger, 3 inches apart. And then I think I think what you want to do with the extra time is you want to do socially distanced marketing by walking around. And what I mean by that is John Carlton, the copywriter, says he never gets writer's block because he's always, I don't know what I'm going to write about today. I'll go out, and you can't really do a lot of walking in Walmart these days, but you can walk around. He used to just walk around and observe the world and see what he's thinking about, and ideas will come to you, but you've got to give yourself the space, and now you have the space to do that. So, it sounds silly, and people meditate, people will do certain things, but now's the time to explore those things that lead to launching a business, coming up with an idea. It's always about the big idea. Todd Brown talks about that all the time. I think he's going to be on this. Where do you get the big idea? And of course, reading, that's why I said the reading group is important, but read the best books that can just, inspire you. And they don't have to be marketing books in particular. They can be all sorts of self-improvement books. Read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. A great time to figure out what your personal legend is going to be. I think, but some of those are, that's kind of the broad thing to do. But specifically, I think, and if you don't have a list, think about how I'm going to start developing a list. The list is the most important thing. And so, the offer is important, and the big idea is important, and the creative and the messaging is important. But until you have an audience to talk to and to sell to and to share with and all of that. And so if you don't have a list, but you're on Facebook and you've got 5,000 people, figure out ways, and you'd be better at this than me, figure out all the different ways to get those Facebook people onto your email list by giving them something for free or something of value. You don't get them all right away, but you can eventually get them. Do the same thing on Instagram. Do the same thing when you're online anytime. I think, and you have your regular email contact list. Develop that, get that into a system, whether it's Aweber or Fusionsoft. Get it into a system so you can communicate with them. Because regardless, I think email is still the killer app. All media is great, and except for the back of yogurt lids and ATM receipts. But all media is good. And to me, having an email list is the first step to really starting to create relationships. I always say, I think I said this at the IM Internet Marketing Party, and it's in my book. It's something like, everything is not a revenue event, but everything is a relationship event.
Absolutely.
And, having an email list or, delivering value, going 100-0, meaning I give 100% to you with no expectation of return. That's how you get a return. That was my topic at the Internet Marketing Party, which was the 5 ways you get paid, and the 5th is money. And how do you get paid? You get paid by people utilizing you, what your sweet spot is, and whatever it is. How do they utilize you? How can you enhance them? And you don't have to enhance them for money the first time out. How do you appreciate them? How do you give them free bonuses and free gifts and whatever? How do you refer them? How do you refer them? If you find somebody who's awesome at Facebook advertising, you find someone who's awesome at SEO, refer them to somebody. That's how you get referred. Don't ask them to refer you. Just refer them. Just refer them. And if you're good as you need to be, they'll refer you. And then the 5th thing is money. The money's going to come. I think if you do those first 4 things, and these are from Strategic Coach and they're from Joe Polish, but I've used them in the context of what you need to do to actually do utilization, do enhancement, do appreciation, do referral to get to money. If you do those 4 things and you do them with heart and integrity and you do them right, if you don't get paid, you're doing them wrong, in my opinion.
What's interesting is you said a couple of things, which is really great to wrap this up. This is great. So my big ideas personally that came from like my belt program, the summit, have been spending time with other people like yourself and just spending time with people in a group, asking them, hey, what are you doing? And then personally, I go for a walk here in Austin, and then I'll come back and I'll take a shower. And between the walk or the shower, that's where the big idea comes from. But it's not just a walk in the shower. It is talking to as many people as possible. Todd Brown gave me the idea for the belt. I won the belt from Todd, which I had another idea from Todd was put this into a method. Someone else said this should be a live event. Someone else said, and it's just spawned to what it is right now. So
it's marketing by walking around. Marketing by walking around.
Right, and just talking to smart people.
And even in this time of social distancing, you're right. I mean, you're doing this summit, which is fantastic because you're getting the best benefit because you've got to do the interviews. So outside of this interview, you'll get a lot of good information. but you'll get really good stuff from all of these geniuses. I mean, I saw the list of speakers. It's amazing. I mean, I'm going to go check out a bunch of them because, and I don't have to spend anything for it. I don't have to, it's just time. It's just time. And that is just, there's no better thing to use your time for than to get better at what you do and spending time with family if you're not quarantined from them or whatever. But it's just a great, and that's why I said the reading groups, all of this stuff can be done live, but they also all can be done on Zoom or online. And it's just, I wish I had stock in Zoom right now.
So one last question for you, sir. Again, thank you for your time. I'll put links on this all over for the Overdeliver book, for briankurtz.com as well too, or
briankurtz.net, briankurtz.net. Yeah, I didn't get .com. I
remember that story. What about yourself? I'm just curious. Out of all your experience, what are you working? I almost know what you're going to say, and this is going to be amazing because I know it's going to come out of your mouth. What are you working on right now as we're going through this? We've seen for all of 2020. What are you hunkered down thinking about working on right now?
So I already said, I'm reaching out to my mastermind members. I'm going to reach out to them even more since I don't have a live event. By the way, just a tip, if you have a group and they're paying you, you don't have to do this, but I suggest it, is don't think that all the things you're doing for them now that aren't live count as the live event. Extend their memberships beyond, and that's just my take on it. But I'm going to over-deliver to them. I'm going to over-deliver to my virtual mastermind, Titans Accelerator, because I just have to get them information, constant, what I'm hearing, get them engaged, get them not sitting on their hands. I'm going to be writing my weekly blog. I may do a second blog a couple of weeks because I'm going to have a lot to say. I'm planning a launch of Titans Accelerator that will have a discount and a special bonus. So I'm going to be in action on my group that's socially distanced. Basically, it's socially distanced, but it's so perfect for this time, and it's perfect for the future. So I'm going to do a launch. I'm going to find ways to move products like breakthrough advertising and the swipe files that I have. I can't discount, but maybe I can do a free shipping offer or something like that. So I'm taking on a lot there. I'm taking on some one-on-one consulting just to help people. I'll do a podcast anytime, anywhere. Normally, now I'm going to do a podcast anytime, anywhere. So online, I mean, podcasting is the best thing because it just keeps you connected, keeps you talking. You get ideas I got ideas from you today that are awesome. I mean, so you got doing podcasts in your specialty, participating in as many group calls as I can with leaders, with mastermind groups, not mine, but others, to brainstorm how we can help the industry at large. On a personal thing, I am taking walks with my wife when the weather's good. I'm doing aerobic and strength training at home. I'm also binging on Netflix, Amazon, and a host of other things. And I got to clean my office. That's the big one.
You are busy, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to be, you say, what am I worried about my business? The only thing I'm worried about is I don't want to have regrets later on that I didn't do enough for my members and the people I serve to leave me. If they leave me after over-delivering for them, that'll be their choice. And I want to know that I did the best I could if they end up leaving me. And that's kind of the bottom line.
This is really great. Thank you again so much for your time, Brian. Thank you. I'll put
You're
links
welcome.
down here for Overdeliver, for your website, for this. I may even just to be very open with you, thinking about this now, I may actually release this just a little bit early inside of the free group, because it's everything that we're talking about is Overdeliver and everything else. And it's just, I think I may just do that here shortly.
Yeah,
I may just
I think
right
it's
away.
funny.
This is great.
I should have thought of that. Maybe I'll do that next week in my blog. But the idea of, I always overdeliver, but now is a time if you how do you overdeliver on the overdelivery? And
Absolutely.
It's hard. It's hard. And you can overdeliver too much. I mean, because then you overdeliver and then you come back with something that's not overdelivery, but it's good. And they say, where's all my extra bonuses? And, it's what are you doing for me today? And that's the downside. But
So
I'd rather err on that side than err on just being skimpy and charging them double during this time, or even, it's like there's a lot of, I don't have to say it. You and I are in the same boat. I'm sure everybody you're interviewing for the summit has no intention of taking advantage of anybody. But you can to not sell is a crime in this environment. And then after, if you have services, I mean, it's just I've said it. I've spoken on foreign stages, for example, and the one I remember specifically is in Hungary. Hungary is a country that was communist until 1989. And 1989 in this scenario is not that long ago. So you've got people that think the Americans are smarmy, that selling is evil, that selling is you're reaching into the prospect's pocket and taking money from them, and it's anything but that. And so I had to do a whole rework of marketing isn't everything, it's the only thing, but then get into why marketing is not evil as a whole section of my presentation, so they would understand this concept of you just market and be congruent and you be totally coming from the heart. Whatever you do, don't change that just because we have a pandemic. Don't change it after the pandemic. But there are things you can do that are a little bit different, but never stray from that. And if you don't stray from that, and if you do stray from that, invite your audience or your list or your community to call you out on it. Hey, Brian, that was a little like, a little smarmy in what you did there. And I think about it and I say, and then I call it out the next week and I say, hey, I got some emails that said I was a little smarmy. I want you to know that wasn't my intention, but, point taken, and fess up quickly. And, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission sometimes, but sometimes, you just blow it because you didn't realize what you were saying and you don't have other eyes on it. So, but I think everybody on the summit's going to be awesome. I think that I applaud you for what you're doing. I think it's a wonderful thing. And because we're all at home, it was a great theme. There were other people on some calls I've had that said, oh, I should do a stay at home, something. I said, hey, Kurt Maley beat you to it.
It is funny. People have called me and they're like, because I'm playing this at the same time that, another conference was canceled. And someone's like, did those owners of that conference call you about you're stuck at home because it's played at the same time? And I'm like, the internet's huge. Anybody can do whatever they want. You can start your own summit. Like, just because I'm doing, well, I do like the attention, but everyone can do their own.
Right. And it was your birthday this week, so you were inspired, and
that's true.
I mean,
thank you, sir.
How old are you? Like 27?
I am 42, sir.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. And you're supposed to say, how old are you, Brian? 42? No, it's a wonderful thing you're doing, and I really hope that people understand the value that you'll present with all of those speakers. You really over-delivered on the speakers. And no one should think twice about anything that you want to sell or give them as positives or things. I mean, if they want to buy your stuff, they should, but if they don't, that's great. And they're still getting so much value, and you're putting so much time in. You decided to put the time in. I know what you're working on.
Everyone calls me, they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm on interviews with smart people. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I'm glad I reached out to you because, and I would have had to come in by, I think I had one more day to come in, and and you let me in under the wire, and I really appreciate that.
Perfect. Thanks again, Brian. Have a great Saturday. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye.
That was really great.